Welcome to the Old Man of the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 169. Grant Williams and Shea Serrano. Tommy, this was just an awesome episode. Grant, very forthcoming and candid about his experience in the NBA so far. He talks about his time in Boston. He talks about the Celtics playoff runs. He talks about the coaching change. He talks about his free agency this summer. And of course, him and I spend a few minutes rehashing Michael Rubin's white party from earlier this month.
Yeah, I think it was justified for a party like that. I think you guys had to spend a little bit of time doing it. Just get it out of your system. Although, honestly, there's going to be more guests we will have on the show who were at the party, so I feel like this will not be the last time that we hear about it.
It's the greatest party I've ever been to. I don't even like parties. We also have a New York Times bestselling author, Shea Serrano. Shea is one of our colleagues now at Amazon. He was a longtime writer and content creator over at The Ringer. Shea has a show actually on Amazon called Primo. Go stream it on Amazon. And he's got a new book coming out, The Action Hero Scouting Report, which is out this week. So go give that a buy and a read. You can find that on halfwaybooks.com. Shea has cut out the middleman. So we catch up with Shea. We have an awesome draft with Shea, one of our least contentious drafts ever, though I will say on further review, it is very clear that you got off to a hot start with your first three picks and your last two picks, some questionable decision-making on your part.
Not at all. But I will say to your point before that random drive-by, everybody brought their A game. We haven't drafted in a while. This is a topic where there's 100 good choices, and so there was not a lot of squabbling for once.
Yeah, give us your thoughts on the draft in the comments, on social media, wherever. Shea's always fun to have on the show. Tommy, no DraftKings segment today. We've got this week's episode, next week's episode. Very excited about that guest. And then we will be taking a break in August. But we do have two more Old Man of the Three things. Those come out every Monday. We'll have one next week and the following week. And then we're going to go dark for a little bit and reset and take a little break in August. As always, we appreciate you guys for listening, watching, however you consume the podcast. We appreciate it. And let's get to our conversation with Grant Williams. All right, let's welcome in Grant Williams, newest member of the Dallas Mavericks. Grant, how we doing, man?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I just got off the golf course. It was a little rainy today, so I've got my, some rain gear on. It's actually fitting. I'm looking at this Zoom. I've got white on. You've got white on. Tommy's got white on. And I actually want to start with discussing and unpacking a little debrief of Michael Rubin's white party, which you and I both attended. My first question is, how the fuck did you get an invite?
Hey man, I was there before you. Just remember that. I was there last year. So let's just say it's a recurring thing. And it was a vibe. We had a great time. It's funny because I think that was the day before the sign and trade happened. So literally within 24 hours, I figured out where I was going and we talked about it the next day it happened. So the party itself was amazing. He does a great job of coordinating things.
You would describe it as coordinating things. I would describe it as the greatest party you've ever been to on steroids. On steroids. I want to be clear on this. I obviously played for the Sixers. Michael was great to me and great to Chelsea. Camille, his wife, as well, when I played there. And I've known Michael, I've spent time with Michael since I retired. And I've been putting a lot of pressure on him over the last 9 to 12 months about the invite. Because I'm like, I played for you. I live in New York City. I have a place in the Hamptons. Literally, my house is 12 minutes from your house. And you've been having this thing now. This was the third year. You've been having this for 3 years, and I haven't got an invite. And so I was stoked to get the invite. But I will say this, not my scene. Generally speaking, these type of things are not my scene. So Tobias and his wife, Jasmine, they came over to the house beforehand because we didn't want to roll up solo. And we spent about an hour here or whatever. And we rolled in And like, I don't know how to describe the party. I would just say, if you could imagine a fantasy of what you think the best party would ever be, that is Michael Rubin's white party, right? Like, that's the party.
It's definitely a spectacle. It's something that you like can't really put into words at first. Like, if you were to describe like not only what you do, who's there, and everything like that to someone on the road, they would like look at you crazy and probably might not be able to believe you. So like it was super like, and it was super chill. So like everyone was just having a great time. Everyone was just, very welcoming and inviting, and everybody knew pretty much you had a good opinion or knowledge of who was there. So it was just a great night. And then it's funny because like right when that night ends, everyone pretty much dips and goes somewhere else after because it's the 4th. So it's really a whole back-to-back like excursion, if you would say, because it leads to a long headache over the next couple days.
I thought what was interesting about the party, and you kind of just touched on this. What was interesting is you have this mix of NBA players, NFL players, celebrities. And when I say celebrities, I don't mean like influencers. I mean like A-list celebrities. Then you have a bunch of hedge fund guys, like billionaire guys. And then you have influencers. You have the models and whatever. And it's this beautiful home. It's tricked out to the nines, literally like underneath the dunes in Bridgehampton on the ocean. You've got one side is a nightclub in a tent. And you've got the other side with Nobu, Lucali, Cucina Alba from New York City for the restaurant. And I left at 11:30. I'd been there 6 hours. I felt like I did my time, and that was my max at 39 years old. Grant, what time did you leave the party?
Let's just say the sun was up, and it was a great time. I think it was around probably like 5:30 when I left.
That's pretty sad. It feels like this was the first year that it hit the mainstream, because he's been doing it for a minute, but this is the first time it felt like it was all over it was all over social media, and it was all over like TMZ and stuff like that in a way that it probably wasn't in the past.
Yeah, this year they actually did like a dope video of it. Like I remember the years past, we've done more pictures, but this year was like a dope, like they had drone, they had cameras, like kind of like when people were showing up, walking in, and they made like a cool montage of like who was there, but also like what was going on at the event. So I think that's why I picked up online.
Do you get starstruck ever? Have you ever been starstruck?
Not necessarily, just because a lot of times, like all the people that we're surrounded by, we're all kind of in the same industry now. So I kind of think of it that way, where it's like, as much as we are fans of them, they're probably fans of either some of us or like they at least know who we are. When I first got into the league, yeah, I was pretty much starstruck, but now more recently, I kind of just understand like people are there, people are people. So we just talk like normal. And the starstruck, I think the one time I was starstruck was when I first met Jay-Z. That was probably the first time I was starstruck.
I think we all are. I think we all are with Jay-Z. I'm glad you said that, because I think there's an evolution. Because I think NBA players, we are public figures. I wouldn't describe most of us as A-list. Certainly LeBron, Steph, they're A-listers, right? But I think there's an evolution to just being around famous people. And Tommy knows this. We've talked about this a bunch. Like I'm not starstruck ever. And the only time I ever remember like really being like, oh my God, like I can't believe I was in a Rag and Bone in Soho about 12 years ago, and Meg Ryan was in the Rag and Bone. And I was like, oh my God, it's Meg Ryan. But then you go to the white party 12 years later, and I guess this is all online, but it's like, Ben and J-Lo, Leo. Leo, by the way, I would say that to me is like, he's one of the GOATs of our generation in terms of an actor.
But he used to go to the games, though. I feel like anyone who's
I know I used to see him at games, but like I never I would never like randomly go up to someone in the game other than Aziz one time. I went up to Aziz one time at a Knicks game. But outside of him, like I kind of let people be, you know what I mean? I think what makes the party so interesting though is the mix of people and the fact that you said it, like we're all kind of in the same boat. And so you end up having these really cool conversations. Like I found out at the white party that me and Jack Harlow are best friends. Like I didn't know that going into the night.
I was talking to a lot of the football guys and I was like, dang, a lot of similarities. Maybe I should have switched sports.
Tommy, Grant and I, when I first got there, Tobias and I, we went, there was one bar, there was a bunch of bars set up, but there was one bar that was overlooking on the side of the house, Mecox Bay, and the other side overlooking the ocean. And OBJ was there. Odell and I took a shot at tequila, and Grant and I were talking, and I asked him about the contract situation, and he kind of was like, you know, hey, keep this on the low, but I think these are the teams or whatever. And then like within 48 hours, like his sign and trade with Dallas was done. I haven't really, we've talked since then, but I haven't really followed up on the team thing with you. What was it about Dallas? What was it about? Actually, you know what? Just in general, your first time being a free agent, your general thoughts about it, and every free agent situation I think is very unique. And what made your situation this year somewhat unique?
Yeah, what I'll say is the first thing I learned is restrict free agency sucks. It's something that as players, it's like one of those things that will just be an issue. And that's something probably we have to discuss later on down the line, just because it prevents a lot of movement and also kind of can make a player like not necessarily have the options that he wants to immediately, like as he goes. But at the same time, I've learned that free agency is also stressful because like as much as you can have an understanding of where you're going and the options, stuff like that, moves fast. So like it's one of those where I was pretty much sold on a couple of teams that I knew I could go to like immediately I would want to go to. And it took a while. Like it took like probably 7 days because of restricted free agency. Because you have to put on, if you're getting an offer sheet, like the situation where I was in, I either had to get an offer sheet or work a sign trade with the team. Offer sheet side, you have to wait like probably 6 days before you can really put it down, because if you're not, you're giving teams like 5 days to match the contract. Versus if you do it on the 7th, they get a matter of like, I think it's like 32 hours or 36 hours, something like that. So it really kind of prevents you from going in that first few days of free agency because no team wants to tie their cap up. And then when it came to like signing trades, that's another thing that was kind of weird because like you want to like teams are trying to either work with you as a player or work with the team and trying to like coordinate between the both of you of like, okay, what would it take to get this person? What would it take like financially to sign you? Like, and then they coordinate with each other to figure out the details behind the scenes. So it was an interesting process, but Dallas itself was a team that I was pretty much like really engaged with from the start. I really enjoyed the front office, really enjoyed the team and personnel there. Had a great understanding of like what potentially could be like in terms of talent, in terms of opportunity, in terms of like relationships with staff and the organization. So I'm super excited because it all ended up working out. Boston, took care of me and got me where I wanted to go. And they ended up working with each other to get the deal done. So fortunate to be a Mavs and excited for every season moving forward.
Was there any other team that you were close to? Was there ever a day you woke up and you were like, oh, I think I'm going here? Because I'm not going to name all the teams, but
yes,
at the white party, you were like, I think you named 4 teams, and I remember 3 of them. And Dallas was one of them. But I always find it fascinating because it's like free agency, I did it, 5-6 times. And it's like, I think I'm going here. And then it can change like that.
Yeah. So it was one of those where I pretty had to get a consistency on a couple teams when I first started in the market. Like I was like, whether it's like the Indianas, the Chicagos, the Atlantas, the Charlottes, like it was one of those where there was a bunch of options, but the ones who are probably most concrete were the Dallas of the world and maybe the Chicago, Atlanta, maybe New York, stuff like that, where things were kind of getting closer and closer, but I think they were still a bit further away because Dallas was the probably the main priority, and they were really pursuing and aggressive from the start. So that's probably the only one that I would say was coming to fruition. I think that was the first priority, and then there were backups in a way because of how they were attacking the conversation. I think the other teams were also pursuing and trying to work and get deals done, but I think Dallas was just overly aggressive on it and ended up working out.
When Boston made the trade, was that sort of a sign for you that it was probably not, you probably were not going to be going back?
Oh yeah, I had a pretty good understanding from the start. I probably wasn't, like even just before free agency even happened, before Kristaps we made the trade, I was just like probably won't be back. Not because of anything bad or anything like that. It was just more so like opportunity elsewhere, and also like where I wanted to see myself in my career and how it was going. I want to win, but I also want to compete in impact winning and be a value to a team both on and off the floor. And I thought I had that a little bit in Boston, and then the role kind of was a little bit diminished / up and down in that last year. And I was coming back to a situation that was going to be a similar position probably, and then you add Kristaps, and it made kind of like 100% guarantee of moving.
Grant, you've played 4 years in the NBA, and you've played for 3 coaches. And even if you had only played for 1, I think you and I can both agree we're in the same boat in that when you're a role player, your role actually can change year to year. In terms of how you're used and your minutes and all that. Do you have an idea right now of like the best version of yourself? What does that look like, and sort of what role do you star in?
Yeah, I in a perfect world, in the role that I star in, it looks like being a versatile defender on the defensive end, guarding the best player, high impact energy guy, but also being able to be a part of the offense and utilized well. Because not only the spot up threes and everything like that are great, but I feel like the progression that I've made has been a lot of like within actions where that's hit under and roll, pick and pop game, and being involved and be able to like get actions where you can play with like hit me and then either fake the handoff or be able to hand off to one of the better guys like Kyrie or Luka and then screen and roll or make a play at the rim. I feel like that's probably the best role that I'm in currently, just because that's kind of the skill set that I've progressed with and worked on not only in Boston but elsewhere. Maybe as years go on, I'll develop into more, whether that's with the ball in my hands a little bit more. But the way I look at it is the best opportunity that I'll ever be in as of right now will be you're involved in the offense on both, and then you're also challenged in the defensive end. Like when I look back to the year when I played under Ime, that's kind of how it was. Like I was guarding the best player, and then next thing you know, I would, on the other side, either be able to knock down open shots or I'll be involved in saying that this guy is a matchup. So we attack this matchup who's on me and you make out of it. And I've added more to my game where now if some closeouts, I can drive and kick to the opposite wing or drive and finish at the rim. And just really progressing in that sense. I'm not trying to rush the progression, but that's kind of feel like the role that I'm in currently. And as time goes on, who knows how much that'll expand.
Yeah, on the note about playing for different coaches, I think most NBA players would agree with me when I say no NBA coach is perfect, but there are some redeeming qualities of all NBA coaches. There's a reason they're head coaches. And when I listen to you talk, and I've gotten to know you a little bit, but like you're, part of the NBPA executive committee. You're a guy who I look at and I'm like, I could see Grant being in the front office or coaching one day. And when you think about the coaches you've played for, Brad and Ime and Joe, for each one of those guys, like, is there something that stands out about them in terms of their strengths or their ability to relate to players or their exes, whatever it may be? Is there something that you've taken from each one of those guys?
Yeah. So it's funny because I thought about this the other day. Brad, I always say, was a great X's and O's coach. He was a great analytics guy. He followed that and followed the numbers, but also did a good job of like making sure that if you drew up a play, you felt like he was directly involved. While Ime, I feel like he was the best of both worlds. He was able to not only do X's and O's, defense, and everything like that, and has a grit to him that allowed him to relate to players in a personal level that allowed him to challenge guys to be the best they could possibly be, while also having the respect enough to understand that he doesn't have to challenge them always. He can lift them up too. So that's why I think that Ime is probably the best one I've played for. And then with Joe, he's similar to Brad in the sense that he's like very analytic, but he also has an offensive based mind. He's a guy that sees offense very, very well. And he's incredible because I think that he'll be able to progress as time goes on and become more comfortable in his role and have a lot of great success in winning because he'll provide the team with a great mentality of pace and spacing and open shots and threes, which is this new generation and new age. And then he'll continue to develop on the other side of the ball and continue to develop on the staff around him and listening. So like that's what I'll say about each of them is like Brad is feel like he's more analytic, very X's and O's based. The player side, that wasn't necessarily his strength, but he tried his best to be respectful and honest with guys. Ime was blunt, direct to the point, very good at both sides, and was able to tell a player either you're not fucking playing or you're playing doing this much. And he was very, very direct and honest about everything, which was what I respected the most because I love coaches who are like that. And then Joe was more like he followed the analytics in terms of matchup-based games as well as like where his offensive style was get up threes, and the more threes you make, you'll be the team.
Great. JJ's talked about these Celtics teams from the last couple of years about the connectivity on both sides of the ball. He says it over and over again, the C word. How would you describe this connectivity when these teams were like humming at their best? What do you think made it so effective and so special?
Yeah, the funny part about it is each team was a little bit different. You know, my rookie year team with Kemba, Gordon, Jayson, Jaylen, like that was like JT and JB kind of coming into their own right. And the connectivity came from the vets understanding that and not trying to push to diminish their light. And everyone kind of respected them in a way and tried to allow them to grow. Then the year under Ime, it was a mix of like at the start, we were trying to figure out, get our footing, and truly understand what type of team we wanted to be. And then as we did that and we realized that defense was our structure and our priority, everybody bought in and just kind of fell into like a dog mentality and understanding like the dogs were going to play and also understanding that you have to be able to compete on both ends of the ball to win the game. And then under Joe, I think everyone came together as players in their own right and also being understanding that we've been with each other for so long and guys were more willing to have a voice and step up and lead. During the Ime years, I feel like it was more like Ime was the leader and everybody followed and believed and trusted. While I think during that following year, players kind of believed in each other and trusted and pushed each other forward.
Do you think some of that is just, this is not a knock on Joe, but do you think some of that is just Joe being younger, being a rookie coach, being thrust into a head coaching position, you know, whatever it was, 4 days before training camp? Like, do you know what I mean by that? Because I think the credibility part has to be earned. And when you've played in the NBA like Ime, and Ime, you know, certainly had opportunities to interview for head coaching jobs and served under Pop or coached under Pop. But it just seems like Joe, to me, got put in a tough situation to start this year. And the credibility part is so important in the NBA. And I don't necessarily think like he got a fair shake in that regard. And you were there. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that because you're put in a position where a team that just went to the finals and the goal is to be able to go back. You have, quote, a better, more talented team with Malcolm added and potential Danilo before he got hurt. And now you're asked to go from being a backseat assistant to the head coach and lead the guys who were under the most recent head coach. So I think it was a difficult position, but I also think that as time will go on, he'll be able to come into his own right as a coach. You know, I think last year was more, I don't want to mess anything up. So it was like, I don't want to ruin the ship that's on its way and sailing. So rather than like truly trying to change things, it was more so like I'll adjust the things that I feel like we needed for the finals and to get better. So that's why the offensive side of the ball was so emphasized. Versus now, I feel like he'll be able to really put in the principles that he believes in as a coach and truly coach the guys to his fullest extent and level, because now he has a full year of head coaching under his belt. He'll have a little bit of respect not only within the locker room, but also in the organization and league. So he'll be able to take a little bit more risk and be a little more aggressive in his style. Versus, I think before it was more like, I'm here and I'm going to lead these guys, but at the same time, we've all been there. Let's trust the players and trust like what direction they're trying to push us in.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say too about Joe is he's an all-time press conference guy. You know, he's an all-time press conference guy. The guy gives great quotes. Looking for a gold star, get it all back to school hack? The first day back is almost here, and so are the long list of essentials your kids need for class. With DoorDash, you can find everything they need all in one place for an A+ year.
With DoorDash, you'll enjoy next-level convenience with delivery in the hour, making it easier than ever to get your back-to-school needs fast. All of your favorite retail, grocery, and convenience stores are on the app, so you can shop everything your kids need for back to school.
OM3 fans who are parents know the pain of going from store to store to find the exact item the school requires for our kids. It's a lot, so thank goodness for DoorDash. Shop DoorDash to get everything you need for the back-to-school season delivered right to your door. Order now for stress-free back-to-school shopping. Use promo code OLDMAN to get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more at convenience, grocery, or retail stores on DoorDash. That's 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more. Promo code OLDMAN. Don't forget, that's code OLDMAN for 50% off your next order. Terms apply. I want to go back to the connectivity word because I think there's a couple things that I would, as an observer, and this is why we have players on the podcast to get your insight. I think as an observer, the two things I would say about the Boston Celtics were, regardless of who was the head coach for the last 2 years, I felt like late game execution and late game decision making was an issue. And then this year, I felt like connectivity really was at times the lack of connectivity was apparent on the defensive end, where that last 3-4 months of the regular season and playoffs, defensively under Ime, the rotations, the scramble, the helper type thing, it was just there, and you guys defensively were, I think, in terms of the modern NBA, were as good as I've seen, and I didn't necessarily feel that or watch that this year. And I just want to get your insight and your sort of thoughts on that, both late game execution offensively, but also just the connectivity on defense.
Yeah, I think the late game has grown because, like, before, I think as our true superstars, it wasn't natural, I think, at first for them to pass and move the ball. And they've gotten so much better at that, which is why I think our late game numbers have gotten better from the first year I've gotten here to the last. Definitely one of those where I think when guys don't necessarily hit shots or guys aren't really, as role players, we aren't doing our job. I think that's when we see problems, because it goes from kind of the moving the ball to a little more aggression downhill and trying to force the issue and make a play, which is understandable as a star, but we start that sooner rather than later when it's in the fourth quarter, closer games. So I think that's part of the reason why the late game probably offense isn't as elite as we have during the course of the game. Like, you think of our first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, you see the movement, you see the connectivity, but then in the fourth quarter, we slow down, our pace slows, and we try to make sure we don't lose the game rather than going out to win it. So I felt like that's a little bit why on the late game connectivity side. And then in terms of the connectivity on the court defensively, and I think it's a matter of emphasis. Coaches have their preferences on which side of the ball they want to coach. So I think with Ime, he understood the importance of the defensive end and understanding that if a team scores 80 points, 90 points, no matter how many points we score, we give ourselves a really, really good chance of winning. Well, I think that Joe has a little bit more offensive, like, hey, if we can make this many, if we make 23s in a game, we're gonna win each game, because we'll have enough of points, because we're gonna have twos and fouls and other things to add up. So that's why I think this past year's team had a little bit less connectivity on defensive side of the ball, because It wasn't necessarily the priority or emphasis, while the years prior had been. And that's not a knock or anything like that. I just think that it's, as you know, different coaches in the league have different philosophies and different ideals. So I think that's part of the reason why the difference between Ime and Joe in terms of teams.
Well, I just want to, I'll let Tommy jump in here with his next question, but I just want to note that you guys were still second in the league defensively. You guys, you guys were a top 2 offense and a top 2 defense. So on a spreadsheet, you guys were fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I think it's more about what I watched versus what the numbers said. And the numbers were still fantastic. Joe still coached a top defense in the league. But it just seemed like at times the rotations, the trust in the drop at times, the trust in the switch at times, the late game matchups at times, it all felt a little discombobulated. And again, like I think we talked about this at the White Party a little bit. I think at times when you are a head coach, you're under an insane amount of scrutiny. And I think for someone who's going through it for the first time, in the same way that we look at a rookie NBA player or a second-year NBA player, right? We allow them growing pains and allow them to learn lessons along the way. And whether it's because it's Boston or whether it's because you guys had been in the finals before, like, I think to some degree, Joe probably didn't get a fair shake in terms of the scrutiny that he was under. Is that fair that I'm saying that? Like, or am I off base on that?
I wouldn't say necessarily it's fair or off base, because I think that both him and Ime got a little bit of that. Joe probably had a little bit worse just because he came into a situation that was already established and had to kind of lead a crew that on paper was more talented than the years prior. But I think that they both handle it with a good level of confidence and maturity. Joe did a good job of taking things on his head and trying to take the blame a lot, right? And also, try to say that he's had to be better as a coach, which I think that he had a little bit of that, had to be better, but also at the same time, I thought he did a phenomenal job with the times that he truly was truly challenged. He could have crumbled and folded completely, and he did it. So I definitely think that he definitely received a lot of scrutiny and definitely received a lot of the blame. While as players, we probably could have helped him a little bit more too, because I think that's a little bit of a difference between Joe and Ime too. The difference between like them both, Ime was a little bit more player empowering in the sense of like we were on the court and we saw something, we were able to like just change the coverage immediately and like trust one. He would trust the guys and what we saw, and he would ask us why. Like he would ask us like, all right, like we're playing the Heat and Jimmy Butler and Bam, they're pick and roll or they're starting to screen with Jimmy. And I'm like, all right, let's move Al to Jimmy and let's move me to Bam. And let's switch anything Bam and Jimmy and then anything with them on somebody else will play as a drop or as a touch and make sure they're the guys that have to make the play with the ball afterwards. And he'd be like, yeah, cool, let's do that. And he like would respect it because he sees it himself on the court as well. And then while Joe, I think he had more of a like, I wanted to kind of dictate the matchups, dictate the coverages we were in, and have like a full kind of control of the game because he's observing it from the side. But I think there's got to be a mix of like both, in the sense of players have to have that communication and ability to walk up and be like, hey, either we don't think this is working, or at the same time, like the coach has to be able to have the trust in the player to be like, no, it might not be because like the coverage itself is bad. It's just you guys aren't playing hard. I think that's what Ime did like a great job of saying like, no, we're not going to freaking let you get away with this. He would literally like, we're not letting you bullshit through this game. And next you know, you would like, he would say, go guard the ball. And you would have this like sense of like, okay, maybe it's like, let's try this a little bit harder. And if it doesn't work, then we can switch. While I think that it was a little bit of kind of figuring it out on that side of the ball this past year. Like if things weren't working, let's try something else. And immediately, I mean, if it doesn't work, go back to what it was rather than addressing the issue in the moment. And I think that's part of the reason why there was a little bit less connectivity on that side of the ball, and like the player empowerment, but also the regard and the communication aspect from coach to player. But I think that if you look at even with Ime, we had struggles on the offensive side of the ball. Well, I think on average we had a better offense this year, but I think an extra 5 points per game. So there's going to be both challenges and successes for each coach you play for. It's just a matter of understanding what those challenges are and how you can have solutions for them.
Why do you think no matter who the coach was, Philly has never been able to get by this team?
Well, first JJ was on the team, so JJ.
There's no way I'm not going to say it.
First, JJ was on the team, and JJ, can't beat anybody in green. So that's the first thing. And then second, we had, I think the Philly has always had a little bit of challenges because we do a good job of matching their physicality, but also, we play a different game than them. Philly's more of a slower paced, grinded out team that scores with tough twos and has some shooters around. While I think Boston has always had a bunch of versatile shooters and wings that can not only make tough shots, but also kind of space and pace a little bit of getting guys tired. The years when Ben Simmons and Embiid were there, I remember my rookie year, and it was Ben, Al, and Embiid. We did a great job of just running them out the gym and making sure they play with pace and getting Embiid tired of making Ben and those guys taking them out the game by playing them guys as bigs kind of in a way, like dropping and making them have to make plays themselves offensively. And then when that team kind of got disbanded and they moved to the whole James Harden and this mix, like I think they also had a little bit of identity, like not really knowing who they were on the offensive side of the ball consistently, which I think we used to our advantage because yes, when James and Joel are going, like it's tough to beat them. But there was definitely nights where like one would be going and the other would just be kind of not apparent. And we were able to like kind of thug our way through games because we knew that with the amount of pace that we played with and the shots that we were making, we were always going to give ourselves a chance. No matter if they were about 15 or 20, we knew that by how they play, we were always going to be able to get back into the game.
Grant, I want to ask you about another playoff matchup, actually, which was last year in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Milwaukee Bucks. Middleton out for the series. Tatum had an unbelievable Game 6 to force a Game 7. And then in Game 7, the game plan for Milwaukee was to leave you open. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you shot 17 threes that game.
I think 18.
18
it's like,
threes.
It's wild, but I always tell people it was probably 16 because there was 2 of them that I shot as hot potatoes, where it's like
okay, all right,
yes, and left and just turned around and launched at the rim.
But you got 18 jacks up from 3.
Yes.
In watching the game, it was very clear that that was what they were willing to sort of live with. Because again, you're in the playoffs, especially you're in a matchup and you're like, all right, this is what we're willing to let beat us if this person beats us. Do you remember anything about that game? Like what's going through your head in that game as you're just like, I can't believe, by the way, you made 7 threes that game, had 27 points. What's going through your head that game as you're just like, oh, fuck, I'm just going to be open all night?
Yeah, so it was weird because I remember earlier in the series, they were playing me a little bit tight. And I remember, I think it was Game 2 or Game 3, I was kind of like confident in a way where I made a couple shots and I was like celebrating after. I would like walk into Giannis and like kind of talk trash a little bit. But in Game 7, it was weird because like I made the first 3 thinking that like, oh, they're matching me up with Brook. Like he's just going to close out, show his hands and stuff like that. The first shot I took, it was pretty open. I was like, all right, that's cash. Ran back on the other end. And then like, I think I missed my next, 2 or 3 in a row. And I was like wide open. So I was like, oh crap, like I'm not about to keep shooting. Like I'm taking advantage of offense. And I go to the bench, I think after a media timeout, Ime and JT just yell at me. They're like, shoot the fucking ball. They say, like, you're out there, you're a great shooter, like trust yourself, blah, blah, blah. And they basically gave me permission. So I was like, all right, if I'm open, I'm letting it go. And next thing you know, I just kind of trusted the fact that like they're gonna keep leaving me open. I gotta be aggressive going into these shots, not like, oh, I'm open, like I can take my time or I can like, like not really be focused and know what's going in because I'm a good shooter. And I just kind of kept going aggressively and knocked down ones where I was like, probably wouldn't have shot that during the regular season or any other game, but like next thing you know, they were encouraging me. So I was like, all right, let it go. And there was a couple where I was like, that was kind of a force, and I still made them. And I was like, all right, now that I'm really locked in on that side of the ball too, I was guarding well. And, I remember there was one play during the game where I think I blocked Bobby Portis in transition. and I was just hyped. Like the Garden was going crazy. So it was definitely a moment where I look back and I'm like thankful, just because like it could have gone the opposite way. You know, it could have gone where I went 1 for 16 or 1 for whatever else and not had the game that I had. But definitely had its virtuous moments, like where I like remember in transition hitting a 3, like being able to celebrate with down the Garden, but also with JT and the guys on the team. I think we ended up winning that game by a large margin. And I think it was just one of those where like that confidence kind of built from there. And that next series going into that Miami series with the similar confidence, even carrying it from that net series where I guarded KD and those guys and Kai.
You've talked a couple times now about how you like to yap and you like to talk trash a little bit. Do you have a favorite? And obviously the you know, not to use the Dylan Brooks quote, but you poked the bear with Jimmy in Game 2 of the Miami series. Do you have a player that you enjoy talking trash to the most?
Yeah, the benefit of me is like I feel like I'm always a reactor. Like I always like if they say something first, I'm always one that responds. I'm not necessarily like chasing guys to talk trash. Even in the Jimmy moment, I remember he said, "Hell no, he ain't here." And then when I made it, I said, "Hell no, I'm here." And that's why when you see him make the and one, he screams, "I'm here too, mother." And we both kind of just black out from there and just go back and forth. And honestly, I don't really have like a necessary player that I love talking trash to, because I feel like I'm more of the like people always call me an asshole because I'm like the one who's like, "Oh damn, you added that to your game this year." Like I like kind of give like compliments, slide compliments in a way if they make tough shots.
Backhanded compliments, yeah.
Yeah, like slick defense. And so people like kind of get annoyed by that. But outside of that, like I'm not like the like Pat Bevs and those guys of the world who are drawing 20 seconds of the possession out of 24. So it's I remember that Jimmy moment vividly. I'm like, dang, like poking the bear is always gonna be the narrative and storyline, because we were up, I think, by like 12. I think I had our last 10 points and Jimmy had 8 of their last like whatever, 16 or whatever, however many. And so if we didn't score the last 8 minutes and 40 seconds of that game, if we probably make 2 threes in that stint, we win that game, and no one's saying it. But then that's how the game went. So I look back and I'm like, hey, it actually kind of helped in a way, because it showed that like we do have that toughness still. I think our team was getting punked a little bit at that time by the Heat in Game 1 and Game 2, and we went back to Game 3, and they were still bullying us in a way. And I think it kind of lit a fire into us that like allowed us to come back to the next game and realize that, all right, cool, like y'all might have had the momentum, but like we're gonna take it from you now and we're gonna keep it and we just didn't do our job in Game 7. We laid an egg. But it was one of those where I think that it kind of sparked us in a way, because we were missing a little bit of fire in a way in that series.
I just want to say that I've always been someone that has embraced the fact that I am an asshole, and the fact that I can hear you say also that, hey, I'm kind of an asshole. It's like, no, dude, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, like you gotta have some shit to you. It's a backhanded compliment, by the way, when you say to someone, "Oh, you added that to your game this year." It's called a backhanded compliment. I said
that to Bam so much. Like he hit me with like a little shimmy pull, because like the year prior guarded him pretty well, and this year like we've been playing each other since we were like 16. So I'm like, oh, okay, like you keep adding stuff to your game. I like it. Like, oh, that's like you worked on that. You worked on that this summer, and he'll be like, fuck you, shut up. And like just like running down the court. If you see him like when we're walking to the bench, he's like, damn, I thought I gave you a compliment. He's like, man, fuck you.
Yeah. Is there anyone on the opposite side who does that to you, who you have to like tip your cap to?
Ooh, honestly, a lot of guys like they say like slick one-worded comments to me, because like they know like I'm not like the natural talker. Like it's like they like say stuff to like try and like get under my skin, or like trying to mess with me while I'm either like preparing or going stuff, like, or they'll come out of halftime and they're in the locker room and be like, oh, you want to make a shot today, and stuff like that. Like people like just say ask like, oh, I remember Chris Paul, when we played Phoenix, I think in my third year or fourth year, he came out at the halftime. He was like, damn, Grant, when did you learn how to shoot? And stuff like that. Like they say like stuff like, I'm like, man, you know I've been shooting for a long time. Like, shut up. And it's like, then that's when the service starts. And like Devin Booker, the one person that talks trash to me always for some reason is Devin Booker. Book always talks trash. And I remember, if you look back at that Phoenix game during the regular season, we played them. I think it was in Phoenix this year. If you just go back and watch the film and get clips of it, from the start, I'm talking, because he said something. I hit a 3, And then from then on, it like lit something in. I was doing too small. Like I don't never celebrate and do like put my hand on the ground or like rock a baby and stuff like that. So like from that moment forward, I was doing that. And I think I scored 14 or 17 or something like that game, maybe more. And I remember talking trash the entire game to Book because for some reason he always likes to draw and chirp. And I think that actually helps because we're in Dallas now, and Phoenix and him and Luka already have this little beef going, whatever else you call it. So I might be able to join in on some competitive vibes.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that. Book low key is one of the biggest trash talkers in the NBA. Did you guys have any moments? Did you share any moments at the white party? By the way, you and Devin Booker. Did you share any moments?
Yeah. We were just chopping it up on the side with the Burrows and those guys of the world, and having a couple drinks. And he was drinking beer a little bit, and I was not drinking beer that night. I was drinking way too much tequila and champagne. So let's just say, good times, good vibes.
It was good vibes. Book made me take a shot at tequila with him at one point, and it was so disgusting that I actually thought it was whiskey. And I was like, bro, that's whiskey. And he's like, no, it's tequila. And I'm like, it tastes like whiskey, bro. That's terrible.
The one that we took together on that side of the house, let's just say, hit me harder than I feel like I needed. At the time, like, I think it was like 8 o'clock already. Like, it was like 8 o'clock. It was early into the night. And I had already taken, I think, 3 or 4. So that was like the 5th shot in a matter of 3 hours. And then also mixed drinks and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, when I walked away from you guys, and I was like, all right, let me grab some water and slow this down.
Let me grab some water. Let me rehydrate. You brought a book. I brought up Jimmy. Do you have, and you're a guy who guards a number of positions and a number of different types of players. Do you have a player that is the toughest player for you to guard?
Yeah. For me, it's always like the smaller, more dynamic shooting guards, like in terms of like Steph Curry's and Darius Garland's, who has nice like moves to get off you, but also can separate and knock a shot down. CJ McCollum. Like, I feel like guys like that have always been my challenge, guys that are more physical or longer wings, stuff like that, do a pretty good job of like guarding. But the guys who are like running off can also run off a screen, but also get actions and kind of come off a maneuver and kind of get you shifted off and get their shot off. That's probably the most difficult position for me to guard. And that's something I've continued to work on year over year.
I was gonna ask, I don't know if this counts as shit talk. I don't know what it is, but the IMMA Make Both thing there were some memes about it for a while. At what point did you find those funny? Like, were you pissed for a bit, or was it kind of like, all right, whatever?
Grant, I just want to be clear. I didn't want to bring this up, but Tom, don't blame me.
I just had to bring it up.
Don't worry about it. I that night was probably the most frustrated I was. Like, I think I've had probably 2 or 3 moments like that in the league where I've actually been like upset at myself. And that following day is probably the day I found it funny. Like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days later. Like, what's the most like? I saw a tweet that said, "What's the most I'm not him moment in history?" And I just tweeted, "I'm gonna make them both." Like, it was one of those things where, like, I know I'm gonna have a Gilbert Arenas moment for the rest of my career because of it. And I like look back at it and I'm like, man, like, it was a regular season game. I think earlier in the season also, it made it worse because earlier in the season, JB had already missed 2 free throws like that against the Knicks. And Boston crushed them for it. And they're like, team, we were working on the free throws, stuff like that. And for me to come out and be confident enough to say, I'm making both. And mind you, at the time, I think I was shooting like 85+%. Like, I shot 90% the year before. So I was going into it like, I know I'm going to make these. Like, and then when Don and them were talking shit, I was like, I'm going to make both. Like, just relax. Game's over. And then you go into it like, if I was saying like, I don't know what's going on, either you got to say like, be confident, I'm going to make both, or you got to like not say anything at all. And for me to say that and then not do it was probably the most like, you look like a nimwit moment of my career. But at the same time, I found light in it to laugh at it, because if I was any other player, I'd be laughing at it. So like, you got to be able to laugh at it yourself, unless you're going to be like crushing yourself downhill for the rest of the season.
What do you think, now that you're looking forward a little bit to September and October, with Luka specifically? I mean, with this team overall, but with Luka specifically, what are you excited about with your skill set in terms of fitting in with him? JJ's played with him, and we know how gifted he is, but with how you play and how you're going to fit with him.
Well, yeah, let me just say, I wouldn't say I necessarily played with him. I was on his team.
JJ was around.
I was on the team. Developed a friendship. Could barely move.
Yes, but with Luka, he does a great job of like, no matter when you feel like you're open, he's going to find you. Like, he get at the very last second of the shot clock, hit you for a pass that is a dime just to give you a shot and give you an open look. So I'm excited just because he brings so much pressure and attention to himself that he does a good job of getting others involved. And I think that's his growth and his next step is understanding that as much as that happens, he also has to empower others to play their games as well. So I think that's the next stage with him and this group that we have. You know, Kyrie has been in the league long enough that he knows how to make a tough shot, but also knows how to get off the ball. And Luka does a pretty good job of seeing the floor from the start in the beginning. And it's just a matter of he definitely has that like competitive, like I can get the shot off any time, but I'm gonna make sure the other guys get a good look if it's open. And so I'm excited for the really spacing and being able to knock down shots around him, but also being able to crash and create more opportunities. Because I think a little bit difference with two guys that we have in Dallas versus the guys I play with in Boston is that we have a bunch of guys around that are like utility that can do pretty much a lot of it all. Like Tim can score, you know, and you have just Josh Green and guys like that who are more like aggressive downhill that can also make plays at the rim and rebound and offensive rebounding plays. And Dwight Powell is more of like a crashed course dummy who's going to run in there and just smack the ball to half court every 2 seconds. So it's really exciting just because it's a different group. It's a different team to play with. Like I'm so used to back when I was with Boston, like switching or playing a certain like role in office where I just stand in the corner. But I feel like I'll be a little more empowered to play a little bit more of my game in Dallas to be able like whether it's screening Luka and getting a matchup and hitting him and rolling, he's hitting me in the pocket, or it's picking and popping, you know, and knocking down shots, you know.
Did you see the video that went viral this week of Luka doing the cone reaction drill?
Yeah. Let's just say he doesn't get paid for that side of the ball. That's my job.
First of all, I just want to say this. There's lights that were going off, right? So he's reacting to the lights. It's not like a pre-programmed, like it's very easy to go fast. I'm gonna give him a break here. It's very easy to go fast if you know, like I got to touch the right cone, the back cone, the left cone, the front right, you know, whatever. He's not doing a drill. He's doing a reaction. I do find it fascinating, and I don't know if he was like really going full speed. I do find it fascinating that guy averages 32 a game in the NBA. And I also find it fascinating that whoever recorded that video, he clearly knew they were recording it and they put it up on the gram. Like,
my thing is like
protect your guy, man.
Protect your guy, man. Like you could have easily like not had this happen. Like you could have been like, oh, let's do one more and let's see it like a little bit faster, you know, and give him like the benefit of the doubt to like, or let him know that you're recording. Be like, go hard here. I'm recording.
Or just like give him the coordinates in advance. You know what I mean? Give him the pattern in advance.
Give him a little
front right, back left, front right. You know, it's like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Did you have moments when you guys played them against him where you guys ever talked, or you just had anything where because he had some big games against you guys?
Well, he had a buzzer beater against the Celtics.
Yeah, over the last couple
game
years.
winner against the Celtics. Yeah.
Fortunately, that was when I was in the doghouse when he hit the buzzer beater with Ime. So I was playing in that game. I think I played like 4 minutes in that game. But the year prior, yes, I guarded him a lot, and he made a lot of tough shots. I said it in one of my interviews in the past. Like I remember there was one possession I guarded him so well, and I think we were at the top of the key in Boston, and he bumps me, like throws his shoulder into me, and just falls back and throws the ball towards the rim. Didn't even look at the rim. And I was like, oh, that's great defense. Turn my head and he makes it. I'm just like, this guy is like special. Like, cause like as much as good defense as I just played, he still made that. It might have been a fluke, tough shot, but at the same time, like that's still like something that you got like get pissed at as a defender. And I remember running back and I was like, that's bullshit. He started laughing, like backpedaling as he always does, like his little strut. So definitely was one of those like frustrating moments, but at the same time, like I remember afterwards, I always say like with star players especially, not the people that I know, like if I gained your respect in this league, I like try and get jerseys. You know, like if I've gained your respect, I would love to like get a jersey, like swap jerseys with a player. And after that game, I think I got his jersey. So that's why I was like, okay, I got some respect of another star in the league, which is like for me, it's like I feel like empowerment by your peers and saying like that you're good at what you do is more beneficial than anybody else.
Grant, why did you never ask for my jersey?
You were old, man. You didn't play against me enough. You got ejected in one of my games. Like there was one of those things.
God, that's right. I did get ejected.
Wait, can you tell that story from your perspective, Grant?
Mind you, like, I think, were we up? It was one of those things where they were kind of getting like a little bit of a bad whistle. And you could tell
went on a run. They went on a run after he got ejected.
Whistle.
They went on a run after. I think they won the game, but I keep going. They won the game.
They had a little bit of a bad whistle throughout that game, and JJ was just mad from the beginning. And I was like, all right, like, I understand, because there was one time I think I screened you pretty hard. And mind you, it was like one of those where like you chasing screens, and like it was definitely, I think, I moved a little bit. So I think that was one of those where it kind of got under your skin too. So like next thing you know, I just see it all happen at once. It happened fast. And I was like, did he just get thrown out? He was like, yeah, he just like launched the ball or kicked the ball at the ref and stuff like that. I was like,
I did not launch or kick the ball at Josh Tiven. That's
what I was told, because I think when it happened, I was walking towards the bench, or I don't remember what it was. But I remember they said, like, yeah, he's gone. And I was like, what did he do? Because you were jawing a little bit in the beginning about the whistle that was being given to the New Orleans Pelicans.
Well, I was jawing about the whistle that was giving between my matchup with me and Aaron Naismith. That was the issue. And I was like, come on, guy.
The Tasmanian Devil will never get fouls called on him because they have no idea when to call it. That man plays so hard. He is never going to get a foul.
He just fouls on every possession. It's like the Utah Jazz under Jerry Sloan. It's like, hey, guys, just foul every possession. They're not going to call everyone.
Pretty much. That's what it is. It's like he plays a certain way. Referees know that. So how it is refereed is going to be different. Like same with like certain guys across the league, you know that they're going to get the worst end of the whistle than others because they switch up how they guard. Versus Aaron, he's going to play full speed at all times. And if he runs you over on offensive rebound, it's maybe a flagrant, but they're not going to go review it because he's just playing hard.
Grant, just so you know, because I've never told you this before, I think I've maybe mentioned this on the podcast before. So my last year in the NBA, my family stayed in Brooklyn. You know, I'd already done the bubble. I'm on my own in New Orleans. I'm like, at this point, 36 or 37. I can't remember. And I'm like, no, I want it to be my last year. I've got this Achilles injury that I'm battling. And like, it got dark, man. It got really dark. And it reached a stage in the season where like you know, I had a routine or whatever. And normally at like 9.5 minutes on the clock, I would start this stretching routine, activation routine on the court before we went back to 2-line layups. And that year, when it got to like 9.5, 10 minutes on the clock, I would go back to the locker room and cry. So I go back to the locker room and cry because I'm like just missing my family. And I'm like, it's like you coming face to face with your athletic mortality. You're like, oh shit, I'm not the same player I was, right? It's very, very dark, very dark. And anyways, I come back out and fucking Josh Tiven comes up to me and he's like, hey man, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's good. He's like, you just don't seem like yourself. You're normally, you know, very talkative, high energy, smiling. And I'm just like, yeah, you know, Josh, it's COVID, you know, whatever. I kind of blew it off or whatever. And then he fucking teed me up twice in the span of like a minute and a half and tossed me out of the game. And when I spun the ball at him, I did not mean to spin the ball at him. He happened to be the referee that was there. And I've told Josh this. I'm like, there was nothing personal whatsoever. It was just like, I was trying to get myself going. Aaron kept fouling me. They finally called a foul.
So you're saying that you spun the ball, you didn't launch the ball? I
spun the ball. If you actually watch it, Tristan Thompson, Tristan got in the way. I was trying to throw the ball to the ref, and Tristan kind of walked in the thing, so I just spun it. I didn't realize Josh was making the foul call because I heard a whistle from the sideline near the scores table, and it's been confirmed.
The amount of pace that ball had,
it came out hot. It came out hot.
That's not one of those where it's like you toss it in the air and let it spin to the referee.
It came out hot.
It was one of those where it was like, boom.
I meant no disrespect to Josh. I seriously did.
Grant, did you ever get ejected?
I've got ejected twice this year.
What'd you do? What happened?
So the first time we were in Chicago, it was a new female official's first game, Cheryl's first game. And like I always say, it's funny because I think 7 of my texts of my, like, I think it's like 7 of my like 13 or 12 texts or 10 texts over my 4 years being in the league. They are from female officials. Their first game refereeing me. And it's not because of anything I say or do. It's just like I'm a very like talkative, like naturally like expressive person. So like I remember after the game, they're always like, "Oh, we talked to like Tony Brothers, or we talked to like Mark. And we know you're a good guy. We just thought we didn't know that's your personality." So like in that game, I think during the play, the possession before I set a screen, and it was a legal screen that they had called, and like it was one of those that was clearly not illegal. So I'm like, how is that a legal screen? I was standing there for 5 seconds, and he just backpedaled into me. So you have to give him a chance to step. I said, he took 6 steps. Like, what do you mean, got to give him a chance to step? And in that possession, I go and draw a charge. As I draw up, so I put my head down and get up and sprint. And my left hip bumps the official.
Can't touch the official.
It can't touch the officials. So that's the first time I got ejected. And then the second time was a dumb moment where we're down by like 26 or something like that to Golden State, at Golden State. And the game is clearly over. It's like 1 minute and 30 left. And the ball comes off the backboard. Steph shot a half-court shot or something like that. Or Jordan Poole, one of those guys, shot a half-court shot. And I go to like punch the ball against the backboard. You see, because I didn't like punch the ball. I literally just went like this. And the ball came out with so much heat. And I'm looking at it, and it's going like towards the left side, and then it's like just goes left of the backboard. So it goes into the stands.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I remember that one. I remember that one. Yeah.
Hoping no one saw it, like, because like normally when football goes to the stands, you get like one tech, and then they get, like keep you good. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll just get a tech. So I go and grab the ball and hand it to the official. And I turn my head, and I just got a tech, which I understood. And I turn my head again, and Scott Foster goes, and I was like, oh no. He's like, yeah, man, I gotta eject you. And I said, why? He said, it's a rule. Like if the ball goes into the stands and you launch it or like that, it's aggressive, you have to be ejected. And I said, I did not know that. Well, I try to hit the backboard. And then next thing you know, I just walk off because I was like, it's a fine that I don't want to have, and it should have never happened if I was just like smart and just grab the ball. But he's like, we're both laughing at it because he's like, you didn't know? I said, no, I didn't. You see, I didn't even intend to punch it out of bounds. Now hopefully we get my money back there. But hey, those are my 2 ejections.
I think you need to work on your anger issues, Grant.
How many texts do you have over the course of your career?
A lot.
Okay, I just want to make sure, Mr. Work on your anger issues here.
No, I'm just.
I think we agreed both you guys are assholes. This has already been determined.
Yeah, I feel like Grant, we're one and the same guy. This is what I'm telling you. I'm just at a different stage in life. I'm just saying, like, you need to work on your anger issues.
Let me just ask this: what is your career 3-point percentage?
Me?
Yeah,
I think it's like 41.4.
All right, I got a ways to go. My first year didn't help me.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Grant. There's been 4 guys that have made 1,800 or more threes and shot 41% or more from 3. And I'm one of the 4, so you can kind of.
He's not fighting the ass.
That's fine. That was
the Aslo allegations.
I think there's only like 3 guys tied for like the Game 7 record for most threes in the game. So if you wanna play important games one day, you might have to come back into the league.
Well, I'm past that.
Come back to Dallas.
come back to Dallas. We got that Achilles going. We need like 4-5 games in the playoffs, 20 minutes. You have to be prepared once a week.
Bro, I don't. By the way, we're gonna end here because we got to get going. I got a boat to catch over in Sag Harbor in 20 minutes. I will say this: I don't shoot anymore. I don't like go work out. I don't play pickup or whatever. I golf. You know what I mean? And I went to an outdoor court like 10 minutes from my house here the other day, and my son was like, "How many threes in a row can you make?" And I don't shoot. My shoulder's still fucked up. I'm just like, whatever. And I made 18 threes in a row. First try, just 18 threes in a row. And I was like, you know what? Part of me is like, I can give you 10 to 15 minutes right now in the NBA. Part of me.
Listen, we have zone for a certain reason. You see what Miami does with Tyler Hero.
Yes, and then the other part of me is like, I don't want to go do 82 games. I don't want to travel. Fuck that shit.
We'll just have you for the playoffs. Listen, you'll be a minimum.
April 1st.
I'll sign April 1st. I'll sign April 1st.
And you'll be good to go.
Okay, Grant, last question, the Roback question. Reminder to our viewers that you can use the code OLD on roback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's RHOBACK.com, code OLD. Grant, I know you love golf. I love golf as well. Always rocking Roback gear. The last question, the Roback question. Would you rather make a game-winning defensive stop against an A-list scorer or the game-winning bucket?
I haven't had a game-winning bucket yet. That's what I'll say. Because, I remember I've gotten to stop him when Fred VanVleet set a little sidestep in Game 7 my rookie year, and then, other things where LeBron had to try to do was, look at his left-hand sidestep. But I feel like the game-winning shot is a moment that I've always dreamt of as, a little kid. Even if it's a Ron Artest moment where Luka passed me the ball, Luka passed me the ball. One of those moments, I feel like that is something that I've always wanted to have in history, where it's a Robert Horry type shot, where it's a big shot late game and you knock it down.
I agree with that. If my kids are obsessed with NBA YouTube highlights. If you go and start typing in game-winning stops, there's very few videos. But if you go type game winners, there's a lot of videos. You guys know I love the brand, roback.com. Again, code OLD. Grant will send you some gear. Grant, this has been awesome, man. Appreciate it. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, brother. You as well.
And now let's welcome in Shea Serrano. All right, let's welcome in multiple-time New York Times bestseller, formerly of The Ringer, now our brethren over at Amazon, our guy Shea Serrano. Haven't had you on in a while. Great to see you, man.
What up, boys? Y'all look as handsome as ever. I'm so happy to be here.
We should add now creator of hit television show since the last time you've been on.
Hey, throw it out there. Throw it out there, Thomas.
Primo, stream it on Amazon now, Amazon Freevee.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about some action movies.
What's it like being good at so many things?
I wouldn't know. My trick is I just get out of the way. I'm only good at one thing, and that's to just put talented people around me and then get out of the way. Easy breezy. I'm like fucking Greg Popovich sitting on the sidelines. I'm Phil Jackson in the chair holding up the triangle and not doing anything else. That's me.
Scotty, triangle. Shay, you got a book coming out this week, which we're all very excited. Anybody who's read any of your works know how humorous and entertaining your books are. Can you tell us about your new book, man?
Yes, it's called the Action Hero Scouting Report. Much the way that they do scouting reports for basketball players. This basketball player is good at this, and they're bad at this, and they have this tendency and that tendency. It's like that, but it's just action heroes. This action hero is good at this. This action hero is bad at this. Here's this tendency, that tendency. There you go. That's the book.
I don't want to give away too much of the book, but I was recently on a golf trip to Bandon Dunes, which is in the southern coast of Oregon. And somehow, maybe because the Arnold doc just came out, but somehow we spent the entire trip talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then when I got home, I had never seen The Predator, so I watched The Predator for the first time. Oh my God. And I'd never seen The Eraser, so I watched Eraser for the first time.
Now you're cooking. Now you're cooking.
Yeah, I haven't watched the doc yet. But give us, just to preview the book a little bit, can you give us the scouting report on Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. So here's how it works. Every action hero in the scouting report gets an action hero score. And the way that we get that score is we put together 6 key categories. They all have like a numerical value. And then you just add those categories up. And there you go. So the categories are inciting event. Every action hero, every action movie you've ever saw started with some sort of event that thrust our hero into action. So like, how original is that? How creative is that? How fun is that? Liam Neeson in Taken, getting his daughter taken by sex traffickers in Europe. Pretty good inciting event. Like that's what sends him off into action. Face Off. John Travolta's son gets assassinated by accident. That sends John Travolta on his mission to replace his face with another person's face. Like they all have an inciting event. So there's your first category. Second category is determination. Action heroes will face impossible odds and impossible situations and impossible villains. They need to have a very high level of determination. There's the skills training category. What sort of skills training has this person received? Are they Were they trained by a kung fu master like Beatrix Kiddo in the Kill Bill franchise? Or are they just a very angry musician like El Mariachi in Desperado? You know what I mean? We look at that. Then there's the cool factor. Above all things, an action hero needs to be cool. They need to look cool. They need to say cool things. Other people need to say cool things about them. There's the wishnificance category, which is a made-up term, but
Clearly.
it's the feeling that you get in your chest when you're watching a movie and you're like, I kind of want to be that guy. I would love to be John Wick. You know what I mean? And then the last one is legacy level. How did this action hero, if at all, affect action movies as a genre? Did they advance it forward like John McClane did? Or did they not really do anything, but they're still kind of fun, like Adrian Brody in Predators, which if you've not seen Predator, I'm certain you've not seen Predators, but you should check that one out. And there you go.
Right.
We add up all of those categories and get your score. Boom, you're off.
I have a specific question about whether this is an action movie or not, Shea. Like a movie like The Fugitive, where there's action sequences. So that's an action movie. Even though he's not
an action movie.
Even though he's like on the run from the cops. Like he's not the hero. He's not trying to save anyone. He's literally being. So that's a great.
Yeah, that's a great action movie. It's a great inciting event. Like it's got all the pieces. You know what I did want to ask when I was putting this together, and then we started talking about coming on the show. I became very curious. This is a question for you, JJ. Now, when I watch a movie, when Thomas watches a movie up on the screen and we see John Wick, bop, 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 or we see Ethan Hunt, bop, like doing his stuff, I have the wishnificance in my chest. Man, I would love to be Ethan Hunt for like 2 days. That seems pretty great. But that's because I'm me. I'm a normal human. But for somebody like yourself, JJ, extremely handsome, tall, professional athlete, very successful. Do y'all, that class of humans, do y'all get that feeling in your chest when you look up on the screen and you're like, yes, I want to do that? Or are you always like every morning when you wake up, you open your eyes and you're like, yes, still JJ?
I'm very content with who I am. I also would say this, Shea. I don't want to be famous. And so I think for a lot of the people you're describing, these action heroes, they lose a lot of normalcy in their lives. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I want to go out and walk my dog and not, people come up and say hi, but there's no paparazzi. There's no there's nobody bothered. I don't need a security guard. Like, I don't want to live that life, man. Okay. Would I want to maybe star in like an action movie at some point with like a bit role? Sure. Like how Glenn Powell started off his career. I think it was in The Expendables, right? He's got a little tiny role. Yeah, I'd like a role in a movie someday. I thought personally, my State Farm commercial last year, I thought I was going to get calls from acting agents, and that didn't happen. That didn't materialize.
Don't you think?
All right, we're going to bring back the Old Man of the Three draft, which we haven't done in a while. No better person to do it with. Shea, you picked the topic, so why don't you give it to us? What is the topic for today's draft?
Here's the topic for today's draft: is action movie set pieces. Everybody's talking about Mission Impossible, and the main thing they're talking about right now, especially when you watch a trailer, is the scene where Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, rides a motorcycle off the cliff and then opens his parachute and flies down and lands on a train. That's what he's trying to do in the movie. And that's how they have marketed Mission Impossible. They're like, look, he really did this. Here's a 15-minute long
Didn't he do it like
documentary
5 times? Didn't he do it like 5 or 6 times?
He did it a bunch of times. Yeah. That's like his whole thing
till he got it perfect
with these movies. So and if y'all have not seen Dead Reckoning, it fucking rules. And that moment it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. But when we start talking about what we're going to do for the draft, let's do action movie set pieces. A set piece is just a scene or a sequence of scenes whose execution requires like some complex logistical planning. That's all we're looking at here. Could be like an extended fight sequence. Could be jumping a motorcycle off of a cliff in real life. Like that's all we're looking for here. That's what we're drafting today.
Okay,
cool.
I love it.
You start.
As always, the guest goes first.
All right. Well, then let me go ahead and grab maybe my number one personal favorite action movie set piece. It's completely ridiculous. Watching it as a kid, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Revisiting it as an adult, still, it gets me in the chest. I need 1991 Point Break. Keanu Reeves, Johnny Utah, jumping out of an airplane with no parachute, and then grabbing a hold of Bodie, wrapping his arms and legs around him, and then that's how you don't die. Fucking crazy. No parachute, jump out of an airplane. He's just there. Oh my God. He's like a caged animal. He wants to get Bodie so bad. No parachute, looking around. And he just goes, fuck it. And jumps out of the airplane holding a gun, grabs hold of Bodie. An incredible, incredible action movie set piece. That's my number one pick.
I feel like Keanu is going to be on this list a lot.
He should.
It's a pretty good first pick.
The greatest modern day action hero actor we have.
Oh, interesting.
Who can stand with him?
Is that a spoiler? Is that a spoiler for the book? I feel like that's a little bit of a spoiler.
It's not, though.
I mean, you're the expert on this, not us, but you feel like Tom can, well, whatever, we'll get this. We'll do our picks and we can debate this after the fact.
Okay.
All right. My first one is Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, I like it.
The sandstorm scene. I mean, the whole movie. The whole movie is kind of like a set piece, but that scene is like one of the craziest things I've ever seen on TV in general. I actually read this book. There's this guy, Kyle Buchanan, writes about movies. He wrote a book about, the whole book is about that movie and about that scene in particular, just the backstory of what they had to actually do it. But they didn't. It was shot like practically, so most of it was not CGI, and the crew like really went through it to get it right. And you can watch. When you watch it, you can tell that this is not fake. Like they're all doing this shit. It's pretty crazy.
An absolute masterpiece of a movie. As good as it gets in the action movie genre. Fucking great. Great pick, Thomas.
It's a great pick. Great pick. All right. My first pick, I'm going with Inception. I'm going with the hallway scene. I was reading the other day on Twitter that they actually built this long tube that rotated and had all the actors. They were like strapped into, so they appeared that they didn't have any gravity in the hallway. But one of the reasons I love that scene, first of all, the ability of Christopher Nolan to pull that off with little to no CGI is remarkable. But also, if you remember that scene, they had kind of botched the plan, right? Because Yusuf had to leave early, and so the timing was off, and so Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he's got to fucking do this like improvised plan. And I just remember the first time I watched that movie feeling so tense about whether or not he was going to pull it off. And, the different layers of the dream and the way the time operates. I fucking love that scene. I love that scene. That's my number one pick.
It's really incredible. And they used that clip in the trailer. So before you had any like idea of what that movie was about, what was going on, they show you that of Joseph Gordon-Levitt running down the hallway and it turning sideways and he's floating and you're like, what the hell is going on? And you sit in the theater waiting for that moment to come and it finally happens. You're like, oh, it was worth it, fucking Christopher Nolan. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. My second one, I'm going with a Tom Cruise movie. This scene is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the attack scene in Top Gun Maverick, the latest Top Gun.
Yes.
The build up to that scene throughout the movie is so beautiful, and I really felt every emotion that the actors and the characters were going through. Now when I rewatch that scene, it's just like, I love it. I've seen that movie like 6 times already. I love that scene.
My favorite movie theater experience of last year. Seeing it in IMAX, it was the part for me. It was the part where they're in the class and they're talking about we're not going to be able to do the track in time or whatever, and then out of nowhere, Tom Cruise just fucking flies over the mountain and down. You're like, oh my God, give it to me, Tom.
So this is to your point earlier about Keanu. Don't you think Tom deserves credit for actually doing a lot of this stuff and just being a little crazy?
He does. He absolutely deserves credit for doing these stunts, for flying the helicopters and the airplanes and hanging off the sides of buildings and all of that. Counterpoint for Keanu is you have to give him credit for doing these extended long fight scenes. Like that's him doing them. He's learning this stuff. He's learning the gun fu, the John Woo style of gun. Like, I mean, it's those two. Those two are the two who are fighting
head to head. Okay,
yeah, those are
Makes
the two.
sense. All right, my second pick. Kill Bill Volume 1, The Bride versus the Crazy 88. I think it was partially. It's partially the music. It's partially the black and white. I mean, it's like such a Tarantino scene. And you're kind of like, what is going on in this thing? But everything about it, I think, is that on your list?
It's on my list, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. I know.
I knew
it was going to
get picked. I knew it was going to get picked at some point. So
I
just
wanted
take it off
next.
the board now.
I wanted it next. All right. It's a great scene. It's a great pick, Tommy. That might be one of your best draft picks of all time.
I'm winning this draft. We haven't drafted in a while, Shea, so we're coming in hot for this. There's no
I respect it. You know what's really great about action movies, why I enjoyed writing the Action Hero Scouting Report so much, is that when you talk to other people who watch action movies, like I knew when we've done other versions of this, we get into arguments and we're like, that's a horrible pick. This is terrible. I knew I wasn't going to have it with this one because when you talk about action movies with somebody, they say their thing and you're like, oh, I fucking remember. That was so good. Like you could just, it's just joy is what it is.
Okay, so you got two.
I get to pick two of them? All right.
Yeah.
Let me look at my list here. I got pages and pages of stuff that I wrote down. All right. Let me go with, you know what I want to do? This is going to be, let me do, shit, I'm panicking. I got like 3 Keanu ones. No, you know what I'm going with? 2011, The Raid. Familiar with this movie? Directed by Gareth Evans, starring Iko Uwais.
Oh my God.
Iko is the greatest movie fighter we've ever had. Nobody's ever been more intimidating, more ferocious. His great fight confidence, his great fight injury. Like I got hit, I'm making a noise. Like he just does all of the pieces. He has a hallway fight in that movie. I think it's like about 37 or 38 minutes in. We've seen him. If you're not familiar, listening or watching if you've not seen this movie, he's part of like a SWAT team, and they have to go inside a building and get like the main bad guy who's way up high. So they're working their way up through the building, trying to get to him. And the building is populated with criminals, so it's just fucking full on fight every time. Iko, around the 37-minute mark, ends up in a hallway, and it's just him versus like 15 or 20 bad guys. No gun. It's just a knife, a baton, and him with an injured buddy. And it's just, it's a movie scene that when you watch it, you go, okay, for the rest of my life, whenever I have a conversation about great movie fights, I have to talk about this one. This one has to get mentioned. He does so many great things in it. In particular, I'm a big fan of when you watch a movie and you see a thing that's never been done before. And in this one, what Iko does, his move that he does is he takes his knife in the fight and picture he's like stabbing you in the top of your thigh. Boom, just jams the knife in there. Normally, that's the end of the move. They might maybe twist it a little. You see that every once in a while. But what he does is he jams it into the top of his thigh, and then he fucking rakes it down from the top of your thigh to your kneecap. Just fucking ruins your leg forever. And he does it in like half a second. It's just a real quick whoosh. Give me Iko. Give me The Raid 2011.
It's a great pick. It was on my list, and I was actually just going to pick the whole movie outside of the opening 7 minutes. Because literally it is like you're all of a sudden on a rocket ship for like an hour and 15 minutes straight. Like there's no stopping the action. The only time is when he goes in that apartment to hide real quick. That's like the only break you get in the whole movie.
Even when he hides in the apartment, he gets a fucking machete slashed across his face while he's hiding in the wall. And he's kind of he has a machete in his face for a minute. For a minute, it's just in there. And oh my God.
If you haven't seen The Raid, go see The Raid. Fantastic movie.
It's on Netflix.
All right, Shay, you got another one.
All right, for my second one, I kind of wanted to do have y'all ever seen a movie called The Protector, 2005, Tony Jaa?
No.
He plays, he's like I think it's in Thailand, and he plays a guy who protects like these war elephants, and his elephants get stolen by an elephant poacher, and so he's on his way back to get them. And they have a scene in there, it's like 4 minutes long, one take of him going up there, like a bunch of, like a circular staircase inside a giant building, and he's fighting guys all the way up. It's like if they did The Raid, but in 4 minutes in one shot. It's really great. But I think that I'm going to have that my honorable mention. I'm going to go with here, in this case, 2014, The Kingsman. Give me the church killing spree in The Kingsman. Some good Colin Firth action right here. A good soundtrack. He's just going nuts for the whole movie. At this point in the movie, what's happened is The main bad guy has put out 1 billion cell phones for free. Everybody's using them. And he puts a device in there that emits this sound that turns everybody crazy because he wants to reduce the world's population. And so Colin Firth is sitting in this church, in this like bigoted church in the deep South. The phones go off. Everybody in there starts killing each other. But because he's a super trained secret agent, he's fucking killing everybody. He kills like 40 people over the course of 5 minutes. It's incredible.
Kingsman has a few of those scenes. I feel like they could be on this list.
Yeah, they do.
That's a
God,
good
I love
one.
action movies.
All right, my third. I'm taking this. I'm worried JJ's going to take it, so I'm just going to take it now. I'm doing Dark Knight Rises, the Bane airplane scene.
Ooh.
And part of why I picked this when I was doing my research. So Nolan gave an interview after that movie came out, and he said it's the scene he's most proud of in his career, which is interesting because he's had a lot of them. But there was no CGI in the scene at all. And it's when you basically watch the scene, you can't believe. I mean, they're raiding a plane and they're taking the guys off the plane and then jumping off, and you can't believe it. There's nothing in it. So, I don't know that I prefer The Dark Knight to The Dark Knight Rises as a movie, but in terms of an action scene, I think it's probably the best.
All right. Great opening scene too. Great opening scene. All right. My next two, since you guys keep taking all of mine, I'm going to go with the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers.
Ooh.
I think
nerdy, JJ.
Saruman's Saruman's army is attacking Helm's Deep. It's got all the monsters. I can't remember the name. Easterlings, whatever they're called. Yeah, whatever they're called. But I've watched the Lord of the Rings, all of them, multiple times. But I watched the Two Towers mostly, and a lot of times I will just fast forward to that scene. It's one of my favorite action scenes I've ever watched. So that's my third pick.
That's probably the most popular action. When you think about how popular that movie is, that arguably is the most popular action scene. If you were to just do like an eyeballs count of any scene ever, when you think about it,
maybe it's probably either that or Endgame, the big fight at the end of Endgame when they all show up. Yeah,
just took his pick.
I'm in the driver's seat here, and that is my fourth pick.
I wasn't picking it. I was just throwing it out there.
The final battle in Endgame. Yes, the final battle in Endgame. Yes,
that is
my fourth pick.
That's a good one. That has to be on somebody's list. So I feel like it's good that it was taken. It's fourth round is good value.
Yeah, really good.
All right, my fourth. Remember Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
The treetop fight scene. Just because when I watched that when that came out in theaters, and I was just like blown away. I wish I was microdosing for that. I was just blown away by it. It's just so beautiful to look at.
That's a really good pick. I didn't think anybody was going to pick that one. Here's what I might do though. I make this argument in the Action Hero Scouting Report because a bunch of movies like that were not mentioned. Like there's no kickboxer in it. There's no blood sport. There's no any movie where fighting was the main part of it rather than like action sequences. I feel like fight movies are different than action movies. I feel like kung fu movies different than action movies. You know what I mean? Would be my only quarrel with you here, Thomas.
Fair. Okay. So do we count it? Does it count?
Yeah, go for it. It's
okay.
a great like you can't not pick that one. You got to pick it. You got to try.
Okay. All right. You got two. Shea, you got two to close it.
All right. Here's my two. I'm gonna do a Mission Impossible because that's why we have this conversation. But I don't want to go with Fallout. I don't want to go with the Halo jump, the 30,000 foot Halo jump that Tom did. I don't think I want to go with. I think the best action set piece in the Mission Impossible franchise is the Langley heist, the quiet Langley heist in the first one. I'm not going to go with either of those. I'm going to go with my personal favorite, which was the underwater heist in Rogue Nation, where Tom has to jump into the tank, hold his breath for 3 minutes. He runs out of breath because, of course, stuff goes wrong. He's dead in the tank. And then out of nowhere, Ilsa Faust, the second best character in the entire series, shows up. I remember watching this one in the theater, and they do this really great thing where Tom, as he runs out of breath, he's like convulsing. You see it go. You see him die, and he's just floating in the tank, just in a circle around, and it's completely quiet. It's just quiet. All you hear is the water, whoosh, and you're like, what the fuck is going to happen now? And at the last possible instant, boom, the big score comes back in. Ilsa dives into the tank and grabs him. Completely electric moment. Give me Rogue Nation 2015, the underwater heist. God, my personal favorite moment in the entire franchise from me.
I like it.
Love the pick. And it'd be hard not to have. You could probably do multiple Mission Impossible scenes in this.
You could do so many
exercise.
You could do.
I love the franchise. I haven't seen Dead Reckoning yet. I'm so excited. to go see it. I can't wait.
You're gonna love it. It's great. You could do a top 5. You could have made 5 picks just from Rogue Nation alone. Like that's what they do. That's what these movies do. Dead Reckoning is gonna blow your mind. See it on the IMAX screen. It's totally worth it. All right, for my last one, I was thinking the John Wick 3 knife fight, which is my favorite fight in that franchise, when they fight in the hallway and we get a good eyeball stab. I love an eyeball stab. I was gonna do the gunfight in the Matrix in the lobby. Keanu does a one-armed cartwheel and shoots a dude. It's great. But I'm gonna go with my guy John Woo, one of my favorite action movie directors. 1992, the Hong Kong classic Hard Boiled. Chow Yun-fat plays a drunk police inspector who likes to play the clarinet. And in the opening scene of that movie, it's just John Woo being the most John Woo he can be. He shoots 1,000 dudes. He does the whole thing with a toothpick in his mouth. Chow Yun-fat does. There's a part where he's going down the stairs. There's a bad guy at the bottom shooting up at him. So what he does is he puts his back on the handrail of the stairs, and then just like a skateboarder grinding down a rail, he does that, but with his body while shooting people. He shoots everybody. It ends with him in the last second. It's him versus the last bad guy. He's got the gun to the bad guy's forehead. Again, he's a police inspector. He's supposed to be arresting this guy, but he doesn't arrest him. He just spits the toothpick out in his face and then shoots him in the forehead from 1 inch away. It's fucking incredible. 1992 Hard-Boiled John Woo. That's my final pick.
John Woo's another one you could have had. You could do a top 5 John Woo.
Oh my God.
Action scenes.
Forget
go crazy.
about it.
What was his last
movie?
What was his last movie?
Shoot, I don't even know what his last one was.
It wasn't Face Off, right? He did one like after Face Off.
Face Off was 97. He did Mission Impossible 2 in 2000, I believe.
Dude, I recently rewatched that. It is the weirdest movie.
What? Face Off?
It just doesn't fit with any of the other Mission Impossibles.
Oh, John Woo. Yeah, that's because of him. Because he's so strange.
They were doing a thing at the beginning of the Mission Impossible franchise where it's a different director each time. The first one is Brian De Palma. Second one is John Woo. They just continue like that. The last 3 have been Christopher McQuarrie. But yeah, it's like a completely different movie than the first one because it's a completely different director, and it's John Woo doing all of his stuff. That's the one where you watch it and you go like, all right, they didn't keep very much of this in the franchise DNA going forward, but it's still kind of fun to watch.
All right, my last one, The Equalizer 2, the sequel to The Equalizer.
Ew. Oh my God.
Hold on. The Denzel Home Depot scene at the end of the movie.
That's Equalizer 1.
Oh, is that Equalizer 1?
That's 1. Okay.
Okay,
thank
then
God.
1.
Thank God.
All right, I thought it was 2 for some reason.
Okay.
No. The
That's
Home Depot scene.
Pick.
The Home
That's
Depot scene.
Pick.
So the Equalizer 1, the Home Depot scene where basically
oh my God.
all the fucking henchmen break into the Home Depot where Denzel works, and he has to kill all of them by just using the tools at the Home Depot. And they have the Vengeance, Zach Hempsey Vengeance playing in the background with the sprinklers going off and the lights and everything. That sold me on that. I like that movie from the beginning, but when I saw that was it. Like that to me was talk about memorable when you see it at first.
The greatest actor who has ever lived, Denzel Washington, fucking hanging dudes with barbed wire in a department, or not a department store. Yeah, in a Home Depot. Oh my God, what a pick! Great pick.
Home
I thought you were
Improvement
going
store.
Equalizer 2 for a second. Whew.
All right. I want to say one thing. This is not going to be my 5th pick. I loved the Dark Knight trilogy. And my favorite scene in the Dark Knight trilogy, and I wanted to drag, and had I not seen my fifth pick in the last few weeks, I would have gone with the chase scene where Batman ties the rope around the tractor trailer in the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Then he drives down and he flips the
Flips it
tractor
over.
trailer over. And then Commissioner Gordon shows up and they finally get the Joker. I just remember I watched that 3 times in the first 2 days it came out. And like each time the audience just audibly cheered when he flipped the tractor trailer over. I love that scene. Iconic scene to me.
So good.
But I'm obsessed with Extraction and Extraction 2.
Oh,
and the train,
my boy Tyler Rake.
The train scene in Extraction 2, it's towards the beginning of the movie, but when he starts shooting down the helicopters with that crazy machine gun, I'm obsessed. So anyways, Extraction 2 train scene, that's it for me.
That's great. That's
a
that
really
movie
good
is
one.
so much fun. The oneer that they do when he breaks into the prison to get the family, like that's how it starts. I mean, that's how we get to that scene eventually. But man, great pick. Great pick,
Shea,
JJ.
Do you consider Saving Private Ryan opening scene to be an action scene or no?
No, that's a war movie, not an action movie.
Okay, so
I mentioned that specifically in the Action Hero Scouting Report. That's crazy. You call that one out.
So Shea, I got one other question for you.
Okay.
Would you? I know it's science fiction, but
Yep.
would you say Interstellar is an action movie?
Nah, that's a drama. That's a drama more than
I'm
anything else.
I'm glad I didn't pick the docking scene for my fifth pick because the docking scene is my favorite scene from that movie. The docking scene is sick when they start replicating the spin of the centrifuge. Oh my god, so good.
You'll appreciate this, JJ. As the #1 Interstellar fan in America, I've been trying to get my wife Laramie to watch it with me. Hey, watch this movie. It's really good. It's really good. We got a new TV at home. I'm like, we should turn the new TV on. Let's watch it. She's like, I don't want to watch it. It's too long. I don't like the guy. Like, it's not for me. I'm not into it. For like 2 years, she kept saying, I've seen enough of it. Like, you've watched it enough times. I've caught enough of it that I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. And it turns out that in her head, she was picturing Inception. That's the one she didn't want to see. And now she's super pumped to watch Interstellar. We're going to watch Interstellar, and I can't wait. I'm so excited.
My wife won't watch it with me either, which is crazy. She won't watch Interstellar. And I'm like, it's my favorite movie. Don't you want to know what my favorite movie is of all time? Don't you want to know that? Don't you want to watch it with me? Why?
Matthew McConaughey is incredible in that. Like, he's perfect. You can't replace him with anybody else. It's got to be him.
Perfect.
It's so good. Oh, fucking when he's crying over Murph. Oh, Murph.
Shay, are you gonna see Oppenheimer opening night?
I already got my tickets. I got my tickets for Barbie and Oppenheimer. We're locked and loaded, baby. Back to back.
Are you doing the Oppenheimer IMAX or what's the setup?
No, it's the 70 millimeter one.
Oh, so you're going because that's hard to get into, right? Aren't there not that many of them?
Yeah. We got the tickets as soon as they put them up for sale. I got my little app on my Santikos app in San Antonio, the theater, IMAX Palladium, the best theater in the city.
JJ, you might have to drive back because they have one in Brooklyn, but there's only like 35 70 millimeter theaters or something. I was reading about it today. There's like very few, and so you can't. Some people are like getting on planes and flying places to go to the theater because they want to see it in that way.
Is Christopher Nolan your favorite director?
For sure.
Okay, that's what it seems like going through. Hearing you talk your way through the list, he's one of the greatest ever. How did you feel about Memento? Do you love Memento?
I love it, but Memento is one of those movies. Like first time I watched it, mind blown. Second time, kind of knew what was happening. I haven't watched it a third time. I need a rewatch because it's been probably 10 years since I rewatched it.
Okay.
But like recently, this is in the last month. I rewatched Dunkirk. Inception, Interstellar. I'm missing one. I rewatched 4 of them. But yeah, obsessed.
When's the last time you watched Insomnia? That's an underrated one.
I watched it like 4 weeks ago. That's crazy.
That's a really underrated Nolan movie. That's a especially with Pacino, to have a Pacino Nolan. People just don't talk about it that much.
Pacino, Nolan, and Robin Williams. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They did the thing for the trailer in that one where they don't show you it's Robin Williams until the very end. When he's on the boat, Pacino approaches him on the boat, and then he turns and you see that it's him. I remember seeing that. It'd be like, because prior to then, he was like Patch Adams. You know what I'm saying? That was Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire's out here fucking murdering people. I'm in, baby. I'm in.
Tenet is the other one that I rewatched for the 19th time. And all the people that hate on Tenet, I don't like you. I don't like you. I love that movie. There's a part in Tenet where John David Washington does the Denzel walk, the Denzel turn and walk. And I was like, all right. Yeah.
All right. I'm in.
John David Washington, he's got a new trailer out. The Creator.
It looks good.
That looks really good. That looks really good.
I'm in.
Shay, appreciate the time. Everybody go buy his book on halfwaybooks.com. The Action Hero Scouting Report out this week, and go check out Primo on Amazon. Appreciate you, Shay.
Yeah, baby. Thank you.